Hello my viewer, and welcome back to another episode of our channel. Today I want to try my best to deal with a question that most of you keep asking me. There are several questions tied into the issue of sex. People ask, why is it bad? Why does God say don't have sex out of marriage? Actually, the Bible calls it fornication. Why does God prohibit fornication? Then some of you have asked me, is masturbation bad? And some people have even gone ahead and said that the guy who spilled his seed when he was, in the story in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 38, some people believe that what he did was a form of masturbation, to have sex and then spill your seeds out. And you're wondering, is masturbation bad? Does God prohibit masturbation? And does spilling your seeds out away from a woman sinful before God? And all these questions. So I want to try and deal with that, and I hope I'll do the topic justice because a lot of you have asked the question. So here we go. In the book of Genesis chapter 38, the story of a man called Onan. I don't know whether they were Luos or Luyas, but apparently in their culture then it was acceptable to inherit your brother's wife, especially if you're the younger brother and your brother died. Then you could inherit the wife to continue the family line so that your brother's name does not die, but also you inherited her to be a cover for her, as a man is a cover for a woman, so that you provide protection. Because we know that even in the modern world, widows face a lot of challenges. They get raided by relatives of their husbands, and everything gets taken away from them. So this was one way not only of making sure that the wealth stayed within the family, but also that the widow and the children were protected, and that the name of the brother or the name of the husband was continued so that his lineage doesn't get lost. Now the question, what is the problem with masturbation? And is it related to the reason why God killed Onan? These are my thoughts. As a man who reads the Bible and who prays and who tries my best to live by it, this is what I think, and this is based also on my experience. I think semen is the seed of life. Well, semen carries sperm, so it's not actually semen, it's sperm. Sperm is the seed of life. If you think humanity is important, if you think the human life is important, then I think basically we must acknowledge that the sperm, of course, it goes together with the egg, but the egg never spills out of a woman. The sperm spills out of the man. That sperm is what fertilizes the egg and creates a human being. So it basically is the seed of life. I think, I humbly submit, I could be wrong, but I humbly submit. Now, I think God places a huge amount of responsibility on a man to be able to control his sexual urges. We know most times women are not very fast to have sex. And probably there are many reasons for it. But I think part of the reason why they're not very fast to look for sex is because they don't get sexually excited as fast as men do. I think, as we've always been told, a man can have sex with a total stranger and go away satisfied he had sex without even knowing what her name is. But for women to get to the point of undressing and having sex, she needs to be comfortable. She needs to trust the person. She needs to know that this is somebody who she can trust with her body and even her heart and her soul. A woman needs an emotional attachment before she feels comfortable enough to have sex. Now, I've read of biological explanations for this, where they say that they attribute it to evolution, that because the woman has to carry the baby for 9 months, and in those 9 months she goes through all this emotional turmoil, and that a baby can actually change the essence of a woman. It's not just that she carries the baby in the physical sense, but that a baby changes a woman not only physically, but also emotionally and even mentally. That a woman actually transforms as a result of having a baby. So they say that is the reason why women don't rush into sex. Maybe that's true. But maybe also, in my opinion as a man, I think it's just God's way of making sure that the man does the heavy lifting of chasing a woman. That's why we get attracted to women physically by sight, so that you go through the trouble of chasing her and she resists you, and you chase her again until she's convinced that I think I can give this guy a chance. Generally, women have a lot more to lose out of a pregnancy that happens outside of marriage. So what is the reason why I'm saying this? Maybe there are some things I haven't addressed because I've forgotten or something. But why do I think this is important? I think it is important when we talk about the leadership role of a man in a home or in a relationship. It is just this, that the man has to make the decision as to whether he really wants to have sex with this woman, because the man carries the seed of life, and he has to make I think God expects a man to make the decision that if I'm gonna have sex with this woman, I must be willing to carry the responsibility of the consequences that result out of it. What I'm trying to say in short is that if I as a man have sex with a woman, the fact that I have had sex with her means I carry the responsibility of everything that results from that sex. Because while it is possible that a man can have a woman by force, what we call rape, I'm not very sure that it's very practical that a woman can actually rape a man. I try to think about it and I don't know how it can happen. But maybe it's possible. I've heard of cases in America where some women have been accused of rape. But I think the whole act of sex rests a lot upon the man. It rests upon the man in the sense, in fact, that's what even our laws say. When our laws about rape, Kenya's laws about rape have been upgraded. And among them is one of the ways a lawyer explained it is that even if the woman allows you to get in to penetrate, and at the point of penetration, she changes her mind and says, I don't want, and you continue, that is called rape, according to our statutes. In other words, at every point within the sex process, the man is held responsible for what happens before, after, and even within it. What I'm trying to say is, I say this as a man who got married and was not a virgin at the point where I was getting married, that anytime I make the decision that I'm going to have sex with a woman, I must count the cost. That it's wrong to let a woman carry the cost or carry the burden of the sex, the child who comes from it, or even if a child doesn't result, it's the woman who has to take contraceptives, and which are basically chemicals that have their own impact on her body, while the man is basically free as a bird, free as a baby who's been born, who's just crawling around, messing about, and is not responsible for anything. I'm trying to encourage fellow men that make the decision. If you are married and you make the decision that you're going to have another woman, what we now call a side chick, I think you must have it in your mind that that side chick is basically your wife, because you're taking responsibility for whatever happens between you and her. And I think when men begin to think of it this way, we'll have less cases of women who've been abandoned after being made pregnant. I think every man must realize that when it reaches the point where a woman accepts to have sex with you, there's a lot of trust she invests in that. She has a lot of fears. She asks herself whether you'll abandon her at the end of it. And if you abandon her, how will she move forward with whatever comes out of the sex act? And what I'm trying to say, and I'm hoping other men will accept this, is that when you make up your mind to have sex with a woman, you must have counted the cost. That if you just go about there and have sex and walk away and refuse to think about it or to take responsibility, you are hurting yourself and you're hurting humanity. And when I say you're hurting yourself, I mean it's a question of asked myself, how comfortable am I to sit here and have fun and do my stuff when I think or suspect that out there is a child I produced who doesn't know who their father is, or who needs a father, and yet I'm not available? What happens if for some reason, God forbid, the mother dies? Does that child then become parentless when I am the one who brought the child into the world? And I think it's a question that I've seen disturb a lot of old men. I know people I know closely and who are having a very difficult old age because they planted a lot of seeds out there that have been referred to as illegitimate. And I'm just trying to say, men, your seed determines life. If the world is getting to a point where we are having too many children or a lot of children who are unfathered, ask yourself whether you are a contributor. And if something happens to those children, if those children's future becomes messed up, if those children become street children, as we call them, if they become criminals, if they become something else, I think as a man you need to take up responsibility and be able to look at yourself and say, I failed. Now, once you come to the point of saying, I have failed, you must also determine that you don't want to fail again. In other words, if you have gone around sleeping about and sowing wild seeds or wild oats, as we say, you must kind of repent and say, I'm not going to do this again. And I think instead of going around getting other women whom you're sleeping with and impregnating, why don't you follow up with the girls you slept with who possibly have your children and say, I'm sorry I abandoned you. Would you please allow me to take responsibility? Time has gone, maybe the child is grown, but allow me just to introduce myself into their lives and to be able to support where I can and let them know that they have a father. I don't know if I've done that topic justice, but I hope that what I've said provokes you. Now, there's a question a friend of mine has challenged me to think about, and I want to throw it to you. Do you think having sex, then withdrawing, which I think is recommended by certain religious bodies, having sex and then withdrawing before ejaculation, is a godly practice, a godly way of family planning? When you look at that story of Onan, would you be able to say that having sex with a woman and then withdrawing just before ejaculation is a good way, is a godly way of planning the family? If having sex then withdrawing before ejaculation is wrong or is ungodly, looking at the story of Onan, doesn't it then mean that even wearing a condom as a form of contraception, where you spill your seeds into this plastic thing which then gets thrown away, is the same thing? Isn't it the same thing? So if at all the story of Onan is, if what Onan did is wrong, which means withdrawal before ejaculation is wrong, then it also means wearing a condom is wrong. What do you think? Please get in touch and share your thoughts about this. And I hope we can have some educated discussion and perhaps even draw some conclusions that can help us on our way forward. Finally, so I think the final thing I want to say, and this is the standard I hold myself to, which I want to share with you, is that I would never have a one-night stand. I would never take a woman to bed until I have counted the cost, that this is something I'm going to run with long term. I would not sleep with a woman unless I have said to myself that we did this, these are the consequences, and I take full responsibility both for her and for the baby. That's what I think, and that's the way I'm trying to run my life. I hope it helps you, my fellow man, to run your life as we move forward. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Get in touch. Let's discuss. Bye.